All right. Good afternoon. I know a lot of you have been asking me for a reaction on the decision taken in the International Court of Justice in The Hague. So, since you've asked me, I will tell you a reaction from the Secretary General's point of view. The Secretary General takes note of the order of the International Court of Justice delivered today in The Hague, indicating additional provisional measures in the case of South Africa against Israel concerning the, quote, application of the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide in the Gaza Strip, end quote. In that regard, the Secretary General notes the court's decision to order Israel inter alia in accordance with its obligations under the Genocide Convention and in view of the, quote, the worsening conditions of life faced by civilians in the Rafah Governorate, end quote, to, quote, halt its military offensive and any other action in the Rafah Governorate which may inflict on the Palestinian group conditions of life that could bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part, end quote. Further, the Secretary General takes note of the court's order to Israel to maintain open the Rafah crossing for unhindered provision of urgently needed basic services and humanitarian assistance. He also notes the court's instruction to Israel to take effective measures to ensure the unimpeded access to the Gaza Strip of investigative bodies mandated by competent organs of the United Nations to investigate allegations of genocide. The Secretary General further notes that the court reaffirmed and called for an immediate and effective implementation of its order of 26 January and 28 March 2024, indicating provisional measures in that case. He also notes the court's reiterated its concern over the fate of the hostages abducted during the attacks in Israel on 7th of October, who remain in captivity, and the court called for their immediate and unconditional release. The Secretary General recalls that pursuant to the Charter and to the statute of the court, decisions of the International Court of Justice are binding, and he trusts that the parties will duly comply with the order from the court. In accordance with the statute of the court, the Secretary General will also promptly transmit the notice of provisional measures ordered by the court to the Security Council. Just staying on Gaza, the humanitarian situation there. Our humanitarian colleagues report that aid organizations were able to reach Al-Aqsa Hospital in Deir el-Balah with about 15,000 liters of fuel. UNICEF warns that oxygen generators at the hospital will shut down without consistent fuel delivery, putting the lives of more than 20 newborn babies at risk. It is critical that more fuel enter Gaza and that humanitarian organizations can work in safety as hostilities intensify. In northern Gaza, just one hospital, and that's Al-Auda Hospital, remains partially functional, but it is currently inaccessible to us. Gaza's remaining health facilities are struggling to operate amid ongoing shortages of fuel, equipment, and medical items. Our humanitarian colleagues also tell us that since the start of the Rafah operations, the entry of aid and supplies into Gaza has been extremely limited. Between the 7th and the 23rd, just over 900 aid trucks, including about 800 carrying food supplies, have entered Gaza through all operational points of entry. Travel announcement. The Secretary General will travel on Sunday to Antigua and Barbuda to take part in the 4th International Conference on Small Island Developing States. He will first attend the high-level closing session of the Small Island Developing States Business Network on Sunday afternoon. On Monday, he will address the opening ceremony of the conference, where he will reiterate the UN support for the aspirations of small island developing states, from halting and mitigating the impact of climate change to building resilient economies and fostering safe, healthy, and prosperous societies. He will also call on the international community to support small island developing states in the challenges they face, and will underscore that they are a test case for climate justice and financial justice. He will also hold a series of bilateral meetings with leaders, including Gaston Alfonso Brown, the Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda, and on Tuesday, the Secretary General will take part in the high-level meeting on resource mobilization for small island developing states. We expect him back in these United States and these United Nations on Tuesday afternoon. Staying in the Caribbean region and Haiti, our humanitarian colleagues tell us that the price of staple food remains high in the capital Port-au-Prince and surrounding areas amidst an already dire food security situation, as we've been telling you now for quite some time. In mid-April, the cost of the food basket in the West Department, and that is the department where Port-au-Prince, the capital, is located, was 20% higher than in January of this year. The Food and Agricultural Organization tells us that the situation has not improved since then. The resurgence of gang-related violence has added pressure on prices due to scarcity of essential products. If domestic agricultural production does not improve and insecurity persists, the price of staple foods is likely to remain high for the rest of this year. The number of people facing high level of acute food insecurity, which translate to IPC 3 and 4, according to our metrics, is expected to reach a record level of 5 million men, women, and children. That is half of the population by the end of June. Since early March, the World Food Program has supported nearly 100,000 displaced people in 80 sites in Port-au-Prince metropolitan area, with about 885,000 hot meals. Turning to another horrendous humanitarian situation, but in Asia and in Myanmar, where the humanitarian crisis is continuing to deepen, with the entrenched conflict putting civilians at even greater risk. The situation in Rakhine is particularly alarming. Despite the soaring humanitarian needs, access restrictions remain severe. At the height of the dry season, water scarcity has been widely reported. An estimated 1.6 million people lack access to hospital care in central and northern Rakhine State. As the monsoon season approaches, strong winds and heavy rains have already hit several townships in Chin, Mangwe, Sangeng, and northern Shan regions in recent months, damaging and destroying civilian properties and infrastructure. Despite these challenges, our humanitarian partners in Myanmar continue to deliver assistance to people in need, reaching almost 1 million people during the first quarter of this year. This year's humanitarian appeal for Myanmar is just 11% funded, with only $110 million in the bank and $993 million US dollars actually needed. Yet another humanitarian crisis we need to keep highlighting, and you did hear from our OCHA colleague yesterday about Sudan. I want to focus particularly on North Darfur, where our colleagues at OCHA tell us that the humanitarian situation for an estimated 800,000 civilians in Al Fasher and surrounding areas in North Darfur continues to deteriorate as the armed clashes between the army and the RSF continue. The fighting has reportedly forced thousands of people to flee since May 10th, caused hundreds of civilian casualties. Unfortunately, in Al Fasher South Hospital, which is the only functioning hospital in that state, only 10 days of supplies are left, with an urgent need to restock the hospital. More than a dozen trucks carrying aid for more than 121,000 people have been trying to reach Al Fasher for over a month, but the current security situation is making it all but impossible. Looking at the wider Darfur region, despite insecurity and severe access constraint, one WFP truck convoy carrying 1,200 metric tons of food and nutrition supplies for some 117,000 people was able to cross into North Darfur yesterday from Chad through the Tine crossing. It is critical these trucks are allowed to safely and directly continue to their destinations in Central and South Darfur. While this latest development is welcome, it is not enough, as you can well imagine. In order to stave off famine in Darfur and across Sudan, we need the cross-border and cross-line routes to open. Lastly, an update from our peacekeepers in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, where they have been doing a joint operation they conducted with the Congolese armed forces against the Codeco armed group. That operation led to an exchange of fire with members of the group near the town of Uzi, which is about 15 kilometers south of Jugu in the Ituri province. The Codeco members retreated from the area. UN peacekeepers also dismantled 6 illegal checkpoints by the same group near Uzi. The operation was conducted over a few days and covered about 15-kilometer radius around Jugu. It took place from the 18th to the 22nd of May, but we just received the update last night. As part of the mission's protection of civilian mandate, peacekeepers established blocking positions, conducted extensive patrols, and provided medical services to the local population. The mission continues to monitor the situation. Busy on the International Days calendar. No money, but I do have a quiz for you. Does anyone know what a Markhor is? Yes?
I'm ready today.
Okay. What is a Markhor? Your microphone, please.
Because I looked it up when I saw
Okay. What is a Markhor?
It is a goat, and it lives in Pakistan and Afghanistan.
Very good. Today's the International Day of the Markhor. Markhors are the largest of the wild goats